Yes, ma'am.
Delegated. Well, great. Hello and welcome to Multifamily Masters Chicago. My co-host Brian Kokendorfer, Kevin Dugan, and I are very excited that you're here, and you are in for a tremendous treat because Aaron Young, with whom I had the chance to see his presentation in Orlando at Multifamily Con a few months ago. This man knows his stuff. He's going to help you know how to control things, control assets, but to anybody who comes poking around trying to take stuff away from you that you own nothing. So Kevin, why don't you tell us a couple of housekeeping items and about MFM?
Awesome. So bathroom breaks, if you need to take one, take one. We're just doing some quick intros here, followed by a presentation from Aaron. And then after we finish everything up, it'll be breakout networking sessions to, I guess, interact with some of your community here virtually. In terms of the mission statement, I'll just go ahead and break down what Multifamily Masters is. Global grassroots community designed to educate, connect, and empower people to build wealth through real estate. So thank you for coming. Once again, disclaimer, what you learned today is not considered legal or financial advice. Please consult a legal or financial professional for your specific situations. Hopefully today will just be for entertainment purposes only.
Very entertaining.
Very entertaining.
I better work on my jokes, I guess. Okay.
Mandy, do you want to go ahead and announce what our next couple meetings will be?
Yeah, of course. So for February, we'll be meeting online, and it will be a presentation on setting up a fund. So if you've been playing in the multifamily space for any amount of time, this idea of raising capital through a fund set up under Reg D or the new regulation CF, that's been tremendously interesting to me. And one of the owners of Multifamily Masters, Ferris Musa, did a fund of funds, like basically raised capital to put into other syndications. He's going to discuss that process with us. And then March, should COVID stop existing or be under wraps, there's your first joke, people, that we will look to meet in person. We don't know exactly where that's going to be yet, but that is a potential. Just so it's on your radar, we're also looking for a build to rent, development to multifamily rental, and a self-storage guest in the next coming months. Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
All right, thanks, guys. Excited for tonight's talk. You've heard a lot about Aaron, and Mandy raved about your past presentation, so this one should be fun. But quick intro to me. I'm Brian Kokendorfer. I am from the Chicago area. My background is multifamily brokerage. Spent about 15 years as a broker and started acquiring properties myself in the last 3 to 4 years. So picked up a portfolio of a few hundred units, mostly based in the Midwest. Looking to expand out and do bigger and better things like everybody else here. So love jumping on these and meet new people.
Awesome. I am Mandy McAllister, primarily do small multis, let's say 5 to about 50 units is my wheelhouse. I like doing them in joint ventures or self-owned rather than in syndication. Kevin, tell us about you.
Thanks, Mandy. Kevin Dugan, Altus Investment Group, based out of Los Angeles, but I own a business in Chicago, residential turnkey company. So we have general construction going on. We're actually planning to build out our construction company more this year, as well as a small property management company that I own. Oh, so much pain around that side topic. And I just closed on my first 40 unit in Tampa last day of the year, 2021. So that was a nail biter, but we got it done. Literally wires hit 4:50 p.m. Thursday before last day of the year. So excited about that one. Excited to be here and help educate and of course learn as well.
Awesome. And now for the man of the hour, Ron. Awesome. Why don't you take us away? Let us know how we can control everything but own nothing.
Well, good. Well, first of all, I want to tell you that there may have been a little bit of a mix-up on topics. So the topic first of all, If you want to learn how to own nothing and control everything, I can teach you that too. One of the things that we do at Laughlin Associates, and I'll do my slides here in a minute. For 50 years, we're 50 years. We're starting our 51st year now in business. If anybody's ever heard that Nevada is a good place to incorporate, Harley Laughlin, the founder of this company, kind of started that whole industry. And we remain one of the larger, certainly high touch. So not compared to like LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer, where it's just pick off a website, but for a place where you have consulting and education and high touch, Laughlin remains one of the largest incorporators in the United States. So if you, I bet everybody on here already has corporations or LLCs, but if you needed anything like that in any of the 50 states, we do all of that. And I mean, I don't know. I can't see everybody's face. Almost everybody's blacked out here or just has a still picture. So it's okay. That's fine with me. But here's what I do know. Most business owners, and I'm probably each week in front of, even during COVID, probably a couple of thousand people a week doing presentations similar to this. And then normal life, I'm in front of groups that when you guys met me in Orlando, I think I was doing 4 different events for different kinds of business groups, including real estate. Here's what I know from our tens of thousands of clients and from my history of owning this business for the last 20 years and change. Almost everybody that has a business entity doesn't have a really great handle on what to do with it, how to make sure it's operating properly, how to get the most value out of it. They set it up because somebody tells them to, or because they had a friend that did something similar to it. And so what I wanted to do tonight was cover kind of the same thing we covered in Orlando, which is the foundational parts that if you get this part right, all the rest of it is easily worked out. If you get this part wrong, you're in deep trouble. And because no matter how fabulous an empire you build, if you don't do the part I want to teach you tonight, you risk losing everything you've got. So with that happy little note, let me share my screen and we'll jump into this presentation. Need to get in here and move out from under the Zoom stuff. So I'm going to shrink that up and I'm going to do this. And so go here. All right. So Mandy, will you confirm that you can see this in full screen?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Okay. So this is what we want to talk about. How much time do I have right now?
Forever.
Oh, good. Well, I can do that. I'm sorry to report.
Probably an hour. Yeah.
Just ask my kids, ask my children. They'll tell you. He can just go on and on. So we don't want to make a mistake. So you guys already have business entities. If you don't, we can help you with that, or lots of places can help you with that. But I mean, we would love to earn your business, of course. But let's assume that you already have a corporation or an LLC. In your industry, you probably are using a lot of LLCs. So why do investors and entrepreneurs use corporation, C Corp, S Corp, LLC? Why? It's for these reasons here. Asset protection really means lawsuit protection. Protect you from a lawsuit. And you guys are in real estate now. As syndicators, there's possibly a lower risk, meaning the ones that invest in put their money into the syndication. But if you're in real estate general, if you own stuff, if you build stuff, if you flip stuff, if you wholesale stuff, if you do hard money lending, it's not a matter of if you're going to get in a lawsuit. It's when are you going to get in a lawsuit? Because there's just so many things around real estate that can, in our fabulous, greatest country in the world, United States of America, where we have 94% of the world's litigation, 94%, right? That's a lot. So people that are going to go out and engage with the market need to put some armor on, put on like some Kevlar, build a moat around you, do something like that to protect yourself. So the most normal thing that people do, the most typical thing is form a corporation or LLC for lawsuit protection. Now, I would guess that almost everybody who's listening thinks a lot more about the tax benefits of using entities, right? The old saying about individuals get taxed and entities take deductions, right? So entities are great for that. So we think about tax savings and we want to get the full benefit of the incredibly complex tax code. And if you give yourself a little education, and I'm going to give you a very tiny taste. I'm not a tax guy, but we'll talk a little tiny bit about the benefits of being properly organized for tax benefits. All right. Protection against creditors basically is if the whole idea originally 500 years ago around corporations was that if a merchant was going to send a ship, they were going to hire a ship and a crew, and they were going to send them out from Italy, and they were going to go to India, and they were going to trade for goods and services. There was a pretty, reasonable chance that little wooden ship could sink in the Mediterranean, let alone when they started going out onto the Atlantic. A lot more dangerous on the Atlantic. And so protection against creditors really started with the crown, the king or the queen, giving a bubble around that merchant so that when they syndicated money and got that ship and got that crew and went to do the voyage, if the ship went down, if that particular venture failed, the merchant who put it all together wouldn't have to be put out of business. You don't have to go down with the ship. Protection against creditors is the main reason you use a corporation or LLC, so that the company, if the project dies, and we know that 4 out of 5 first-time businesses will go out of business in the first 5 years. Doesn't mean they've necessarily failed. Maybe they never even got off the ground. Maybe I've met a lot of people who've started something and they never even got their legs under them. And they finally said, this is crazy. I'll go back to my W-2. But protection against creditors is really the primary reason entities exist. Of course, estate planning companies don't die. They get a new board of directors, they get new officers, they get new shareholders. That's why we can have companies. I'm wearing a shirt right now from a company that's 125 years old. The founder is long gone, but the company still exists, just with new owners. So there's some value in forming entities. And then the prestige and credibility that comes along with being properly set up versus just, hey, I'm Bob of Bob's Plumbing. If I'm Robert Johnson of Acme Plumbing and Pipe Fitting Incorporated, I may get to make a bid on a project, or I might get taken a little more seriously by the bank. And it's the same, even if you're working from your kitchen table. A lot of times we have to, regardless of where our office is or isn't, when we're properly organized, we get better treatment from any number of potential lenders, potential affiliates, potential partners. They want to see that you know how to be a real business. And so that's why it's important. So I'm going to give you this thing. This is normally something I have. Well, it's not even normally something I always do, but I normally wait to give you any sort of a benefit till the very end. But I know that people come on and off of meetup groups and webinars. So here's the deal. You're here today, and I'll talk about this at the end. And probably right now, nobody will go, oh, I see a lot of value in this. But if you're one of those people who has, a W-2 job, and you've self-directed an IRA, and you've got some money from a multi-level marketing thing, and you're syndicating your money to buy multifamily, and maybe you've got 3 rental houses over here, who knows? A lot of times business owners come to us and they go, I have all these things and I don't really know how they fit together. I don't know how to make them work together. So we sell this thing called a business snapshot that basically looks at everything you've got and puts together a kind of a cohesive plan and shows you where you're solid and where you're not. So if you go to limitmyrisk.com now or later, just take a picture with your phone or open another tab if you want. I don't want you to miss the content, but this is my give. I'll show this again at the end for anybody that wants to do it. It takes a little effort. We don't sell like one size fits all stuff. So if you decide anything I talk about tonight sounds like something you want to dig deeper into, we're going to ask you to tell us a few things about what you're doing in order to be able to give you some kind of, comprehensive help. We're not trying to, you know, sell widgets. We have an 87% renewal rate with our almost 50,000 clients. And the reason is because we want to make sure we do the right things for them. So if you want to learn how to put all your pieces together, we can do that for you. Okay, so now let's get in. That's the extent of my pitch. Okay. The key to success in entity formation, and I hear somebody scratch around the background, so you may want to mute your microphones. The key to success is separation. Remember, the idea was to own nothing, control everything. The way you can own nothing and control everything is by getting it out of your name, by getting it separate from you. And then you can add layers of privacy. I just read about a billionaire just this morning. I read about a billionaire who's buying up all this property near Driggs, Idaho, which is kind of right by the pass going up into Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And he's purchased about 6,000 or 7,000 acres so far. It was only discovered after he started doing construction because he used all these corporations and LLCs to buy the land without it being in his name. So nobody, and you know who else did that famously? Walt Disney, when he was buying up all the land in the Orlando area, Kissimmee area. He knew if people knew Walt Disney was buying it, that they would raise the rate, they'd raise the price. And if you ever go to Disney World, you'll notice there's one thing sitting right in the middle of Disney World. Maybe somebody will remember the name. I know it, but I can't come up with it right this minute. But there's a resort right in the middle of Disney World from the one holdout that figured out it was Walt Disney and wouldn't sell their property. And so I wish I could think what it's called, something Creek, Bonnet Creek. Anyway, that was because Disney, the word got out and the price went up. That same property around Driggs, Idaho, they said what was selling for $89,000 in 2020 is now 5 acres, now is selling on average $795,000. Why? Because they know this billionaire wants to buy it. If you want to get great asset protection, you've got to separate stuff from you. The key is always separation. So I want you to learn this, and this could be for corps or LLCs. Write this down. I'll tell you the stuff that's critical. Write this one down. I am not the corporation. The corporation is not me. I am not the corporation. The corporation is not me. So often, because we put our money, our savings, our, self-directed IRA or 401k, our max out our credit cards, our fill in the blanks into things, we go, oh, that's mine. That's my rental house. That's my apartment complex. That's my truck. That's my computer. But you have the company pay for it a lot of times. It's done in the name of a company. And when you think of you and the company as being one and the same, you open yourself up for big problems. A corporation or an LLC, in the eyes of the court, in the eyes of the IRS, is a paper person. Okay, a paper person. When we commingle, when we don't think of ourselves as separate, but we mingle stuff, then the government calls that your alter ego. And they say, oh, it's just a placeholder for the human. They don't treat it like a separate thing. They treat it like another piggy bank with, a new name attached to it. And that's where you start to get into hot water. So remember this, I'm not the corporation. The corporation is not me. So whether you have a C corporation, an S corporation, an LLC, some combination of the three, they all have one thing in common, one critical piece, which is what I want to talk about tonight, which is all of them are obligated by law to keep what's called corporate formalities. So every state, all 50 states, requires C Corps, S Corps, and LLCs. And you may have been told something different about LLCs. Trust me on this one. I'm telling you the facts. I'm not trying to sell you something right now. I'm assuming you already have this. Unless you're a single member LLC in South Carolina, that's the only exception to the rule. You're obligated, even one member LLCs are obligated to hold board meetings, keep minutes, pass resolutions, issue membership, just like a C Corp or an S Corp issue stock. LLC's got to issue membership. We'll talk more about that as we go along. But corporate formalities are required by law in all 50 states. And if you don't keep corporate records and you get sued or you get audited, the first thing they want to do is put everything you've got at risk, or if it's taxes, strip away the deductions you've been taking. I had a client, well, I have a client now who was not a client at the time, who got an audit notice, wasn't worried about it. He knew he had great financials. He knew they were very accurate in their reporting. The auditor shows up at his office in Murray, Utah, big custom home builder. And they had the CFO here, they had the CPA here, the CEO in the middle, the auditor on the opposite side of the conference room table. And the auditor sits down and grabs the corporate minute book and flips through it, closes the book and says, okay, we're dealing with a sole proprietor here, not a corporation. Why? They'd never issued stock. They weren't having regular board meetings because why? There was only one member of the board, the owner, the CEO. They hadn't done the corporate formalities because they didn't think it applied to them. And so the auditor came in and said, okay, we're going to treat this as a sole proprietorship because you haven't acted like an entity. And according to that fella, they wiped out about $250,000 in deductions that afternoon, plus a 45% penalty. So that's a bad day at work, I would say. That's a sucky deal. So we don't ever want that to happen to you. So if your corporate records are not in order and you get into something with an adversary, like a lawsuit or an audit, you could be stripped of all your protection and all your tax, or many of your tax deductions. However, when you use a corporation or an LLC properly, there's just like tons and tons of benefits. I tell people, if you're using your entity properly, it's like getting a 30, 35, maybe a bigger percentage raise in your lifestyle, because so many things the company can pay for. And I bet a lot of you already know this. I bet your internet or your cell phone or your car or your fuel or your something is being paid for in full or in part by your business entity, right? This is a very, very incomplete list. This thing could be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of items. You can live this great pre-tax life, and you can continue with that even if you get examined, if you've done things legally and appropriately. So these deductions that we get as a business owner are a huge, huge benefit to us, to our lives, to our families, to our goals, to our charitable goals, anything. These benefits we get as an owner give us big benefits, but with the big benefit comes responsibility. And the biggest mistake that we see business owners make, and you could say, but I'm not really a business owner, I'm an investor, or I'm a whatever. I'm just telling you, if you have an entity, then you own an opportunity to benefit. A guy named Sandy Botkin, who is both a tax lawyer and a CPA, and he was an enrolled agent as well. He had that registration. He said, he spoke at one of my events, he spoke at a number of my events in years past, and he said something kind of not very politically correct, but he said, you would have to be brain dead to not form an LLC or corporation. He said, just go sign up for some MLM and form an entity, because there's so many deductions you can get. It has very little to do with how much you're making. It's what are you endeavoring to do? You can lose money and still take deductions. Guys, I'm not trying to give you tax advice. I'm just saying business entities give you all these benefits, but the big mistake that the owners of these entities make is their failure to act like a real business, their failure to document their decisions, and so on. And the formal documents, the things that happen in board meetings, are the only thing that prove you and the entity are separate. The formal documents, what's in your corporate minute book, are the only things that are recognized to show that you and the entity are separate. There's something that you hear about in business reporting all the time called piercing the corporate veil. What that means is somebody either comes after your business or comes after you, and they look around, they go, how much can we get? If they come after the company, then they also want your stuff. If they come after you, like let's say your teenage driver goes out and runs into somebody, and once they find out that mom or dad owns a business or is a big investor, all of a sudden the State Farm insurance claim isn't all they want. And they get a lawyer and they come after you. You see this all the time. It's on news all the time. It's, you know, what we call in a lot of businesses, real estate, especially, slip and fall. They want to come up with a reason to get a lawyer to work on commission, contingency litigation, commission litigation, to get as much from you to, what do they call it? Redistributing your wealth, right? That's what they want to do. They want to pierce the corporate veil, either to get through the business to your household or get through to the business. A lot of people say, well, my company's not worth very much yet. And I'm saying, well, what do you have? Do you have equity in a home? Do you have a boat? Do you have a vacation house? Do you have a bunch of savings? Do you have college money for your kids? What do you have that's losable? What do you have that somebody would love to get their hands on, right? This is what makes you a potential target for litigation. They call it piercing the corporate veil when you own a business. And what we want to do is make sure that that veil cannot be pierced. Closely held companies like one-member LLCs, a lot of S Corps, certainly sole proprietors. Number one is sole proprietors, but closely held businesses, especially single member LLCs and S Corps, have the greatest risk of having their corporate veil pierced. Why? Because they know that you're pretty small, you don't have a big budget to fight with, you probably are not thinking about things like corporate formalities. You're probably using the cheapest tax preparer that you can, or you're doing TurboTax or something. And they just know, the government knows, the contingency litigation people can do a quick LexisNexis and see everything you have that's in your name. And they can decide very quickly if you're an easy target. And then they come after you. I'm dealing with a lawsuit right now. We're going to win it. I bought a piece of property like 6 years ago. It's a really cool piece of property. There was an easement, and there was ingress egress, but there was also kind of a part of the bench on the top of this mountain that was already in an easement connected to the piece of property, the 20 acres that I bought. And if the easement hadn't been there, the eyeball, the visual of coming up to that mountaintop property would have been weird. It would have been disjointed. And so anyway, but I liked it. I saw it. I realized that I couldn't build anything in the easement, but I could landscape it. I could fence it. I could make it pretty, could light it. We could, basically add about 3 more acres of visual appeal to the property. So we went through all this work, stumped it, cleaned it, built a new driveway for the lady who'd granted the easement to the previous owner. And so I did all these things. Like 4 years go by, I'm trying to decide if I'm going to build a house up on this mountain. And I get named in a lawsuit, and she's asking the guy that I bought the land from to recover damages for some trees he pulled out from, timber concerns, old little baby trees, but whatever. And then she names me in the lawsuit, and she wants me to give up that 3-acre easement, which I would have never bought the property without. So I hire one of the best real estate lawyers in the county. And the lawyer says, yeah, and we're $25,000 into a lawsuit right now. I'm going to win the lawsuit, but I've been dealing with it for about 18 months of just this. Her lawyer, who's working on contingency, just keeps filing more papers. We keep kind of winning in our arguments, keep filing papers. Let's go to arbitration, make an offer. I tried to buy her land for all this stuff. Why? Because they see me as a deep pocket. She's living in a double-wide mobile home on top of this property. She's almost 80 years old. Her daughter got a divorce, moved back in with her. And it's like, why did you give up that easement? Let's go get this back. They really want me to buy their land for an elevated price, but they can just tie me up in court over nothing. And the good news is that the corporation itself doesn't have much. What I would lose was I'd lose this easement, which would lose some value of my property, but I can't lose any of my own stuff. And thankfully I believe I can fight longer than her. But this is how easy and stupid lawsuits can be. She just saw a deep pocket and wanted to get some money. She asked me for some stupid big number, $200,000 or something, to give up, or, you know, to keep the easement. Just keep the easement. I couldn't buy the land, just keep the easement. The point is, if a lawyer thinks they can leverage you, twist your arm behind your back and them get a big commission, and then the plaintiff getting whatever's left over, that's how easy it is, guys. But when they start to look and they go, oh, I can't, they haven't named anything else I've got, because everything is separate, everything is proper, all the rules have been followed. So my risk is just the easement. And I figured the easement's worth $200,000. So if I spend $50,000, $60,000 to protect it, it's still good for me to keep it. So I just want you to understand, it's so easy to get caught up in something where you did nothing wrong. They don't want any damages. They don't want anything. They don't want anything from me. They just want me to give up the easement. They think that's really simple. I think it's hurting. Plus the point, I've got to prove a point and say, no, I'm not going to do it just because you want to try to beat up on me. Guys, if you don't have deep enough pockets and that happens, you end up losing stuff. You end up losing. So what you want to do is stop the lawsuit before it starts. Because when they look and they go, oh, this is going to be a tough nut to crack, and all that's really there is this little bit of something, they don't start naming everything. But I can give you tons of examples of people that didn't have those things in place and got crushed, got decimated. I can tell you great stories of people that had their corporate veil in place, and tragic stories of people who've come to us, what I call event driven. They've been through some horrible event. They've seen where they were weak, and now they're looking for somebody to help them build a new empire properly and safely. And that's why they come to us. And that's why we've been in business forever, and why we've got such a high renewal rate with our clients. But guys, it's so much better and cheaper to do it up front than to do it after the problem. The problem, I promise, will cost way more than the solution. So small companies are the greater risk of having their veil pierced. Here's a quote from Wake Forest Law Review. Piercing the corporate veil has become the most litigated issue in corporate law today. Hear that? Most litigated. By the way, there's a lawsuit filed, according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, against what's considered a small business every 22 seconds in the United States. There's a lawsuit filed against a small business every 22 seconds. And piercing the corporate veil has become the most litigated issue in corporate law. In every case, the plaintiff's intent is to acquire the personal and business assets, and at least half the time they win. So that's bad. So what do we need to do? First of all, if you've got an entity, if you don't have an entity, go to that website, and I'll show it to you again at the end. I don't even remember what the URL was, but was it Limit My Risk? Maybe. But anyway, if you don't have an entity now, get on the phone with somebody from our office, and let's at least talk about what might work for you. All right. But if you already do have a corporation or LLC or multiples, okay, the first thing you want to do is start having regular board meetings. An annual shareholder meeting to reelect the board, which you probably don't even know you're doing, your CPA is probably doing it for you, is not enough. Every time you are making any sort of important decision, you're acting as the board of directors, not as the president or the manager of the LLC. So you have to hold regular board meetings, okay? And you need to keep minutes of those meetings. Minutes are basically on this day at this place, this person or these people got together and talked about this stuff. That's the minutes. All corporations and LLCs are required to keep minutes. All 50 states by law, you must do it. It's got to be maintained in written form. It's required. And you could say, well, but I've never done it and I've never had an issue. Right. You can drive 100 miles an hour through a school zone every day if you want to. It will only matter when what happens, when you get caught. So when somebody sees you, when you're examined, then all of a sudden, what never mattered any other time before matters a lot. So you need to hold board meetings, you need to keep minutes, which is basically, if you're one member board, it's what you're thinking about. Should we take in that money? Should we invest in this deal? Should I buy this property? Should I change CPA? Should I give myself a raise? Should I get a car allowance? Should I get medical benefits? Just whatever. There's hundreds and hundreds of items that you are thinking about as a business. Okay. When you make a decision on one of those things, you write it down, and that's called a resolution. I've resolved to do something. And even if you're the only shareholder, the only board member, the only employee of the company, you have different roles that you play. As the shareholder, you have one job: vote in the board. As the board, you're making the big decisions for the company. And as the manager or president, you are enacting the will of the board. So a resolution from the board is basically a permission slip to the president or the manager of the LLC to go do something. And even if you're all of those roles, you still need to follow the form, the process, so that legally you can show separation between you and the activities of the company. Okay. Oh, let me show you this. So people say, okay, so I need to hold meetings, keep minutes, pass resolutions. So what do I need to do? So I want you guys to do this. Don't try to take a picture. Don't try to write this down. Just watch the screen as these things go by. I asked my team to put together a slide that shows the most common things that a company does that need to be memorialized in the form of a board resolution. These are just the most common of hundreds of things that seem like just course of doing business stuff. These things need a board resolution. Without them, you risk piercing your corporate veil. Okay, ready? Just watch, try to drink it in. So you ask yourself, are you in compliance? If you're like 95% of the people that I meet, the answer is likely no. If you believe you are, congratulations. That separates you from the vast majority of companies. Cornell Law Review says if you failed to keep proper corporate records, and if you're ever sued, you have a 50 to 94% chance of losing your personal assets to satisfy that business judgment. 50 to 94% of losing your personal assets to satisfy a business judgment. So piercing the corporate veil is a problem. And the only thing that creates that impenetrable veil or wall or armor or shield or whatever you want to call it is the corporate formality documents: holding meetings, keeping minutes, passing resolutions, issuing stock, doing a proper organizational meeting, do a proper shareholder meeting, and so on. Those are the ways that you stop the veil from being pierced. If anything I've said to you, you go, ooh, I better dig into that, then go to limitmyrisk.com. You can open up a browser tab now if you want. It's free. You will be asked a few questions and we'll look at it and see, where are you strong and is there any weakness? Is there something else you want to do? Is there anything else you want to dig into about entities or compliance? Or if you're already very successful, how can I go to the next level of really own nothing, control everything? I want to end with a little story. You guys remember the three pigs? So the three pigs are living in this nice gated neighborhood. Everything seems perfect, and two of the brothers just are having fun. They're digging their home. They got a great view. The one brother seems super uptight. They're always doing stuff over at their house, trying to just keep working on, do stuff. And, they tease the one guy who went the extra mile to really build a solid brick house. The twig house, the straw house are nice. There's good views, good ventilation. It's great. Well, one day the big bad wolf shows up. And the big bad wolf goes up to the house of straw and he's, little pig, let me come in. And they say, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in, right? And the wolf huffs and puffs and he blows down the straw house. So the little pig, fearing it's going to die, runs over to the best friend brother in the twig house. And the wolf comes, little pig, let me come in. And he huffs and he puffs and he blows that house down. He's threatening and he's following through on his threat. The two little pigs run as fast as they can to their older brother, the brick house, and they go in there and they bar the door, and the wolf comes and threatens and circles and huffs and puffs and, acts like a fool, but does everything that the wolf can possibly do to get in, and the wolf cannot get in, and the little pigs are safe inside the brick house. And here's what we can learn from the story. One, almost everybody I meet is living just like in that neighborhood. The majority of people or pigs are living in a twig house or a straw house. They're not prepared. And the second thing we learn is that there was no advance notice of the wolf coming to the door. Just all of a sudden, the wolf was there, made a threat, and was able to follow through on the threat against the people that were unprepared, right? And so many small business owners are in that situation. They never know when the threat may show up. It may be as simple as getting in your automobile tomorrow morning and driving to go get coffee, and you end up inadvertently in an accident. It could be some crazy thing on a job site. It could be somebody that's upset about the money they put into something. You just don't know. You just don't know. So it's so much better to be prepared. And even if you have done stuff already to try to get prepared, let's make sure that everything can work cohesively so that you get the benefit that you've been paying for, that you've been hoping for, that you thought you were going to get. But if I've said anything at all that made the hair on your neck go up a little bit, you thought, ooh, I haven't done that, go to limitmyrisk.com, fill in the little form. Let's get on a phone call with somebody from my office and they'll just talk to you. There's no big hard sales pitch. We have stayed in business all these years with a mantra that says, look, we don't sell any more or any less than a customer needs. If somebody comes to us and says, here's my situation, we're going to make recommendations. We're not going to oversell and we're not going to undersell. All we want you to do is get the right thing for your circumstance. That's why we've been in business for so long. That's why we have A+ Better Business Bureau rating, because all we want to do is make sure you're successful, because if you're successful, you'll stay a customer with us and be one of that 87% renewal rate. So limitmyrisk.com is my gift to you guys. And I hope you'll take me up on the offer and you'll go to limitmyrisk.com and we'll see if there's a way that we can make sure that you've got a very, very strong brick house. Okay.
I love it. Anytime you can use a fable to make a point, I feel like it's the ultimate win. So awesome, Aaron. Thank you. We do have, you're speaking my language, like the 5-year-old in the other room would love to hear that. Anyway, so we do have a couple of questions here in the chat. Can you protect yourself from lawsuits with umbrella insurance? Maybe speak a little to that.
So I just had a guy today, called me up and he said, I have a large umbrella policy. I thought that's all I needed for asset protection. He's got a going concern business. And he said, I just lost a multi-$100,000 judgment that I thought I would have been protected. Here's the deal with insurance. A lot of times insurance is an enticement. How many of these people that were looting and robbing use the fact that, oh, that store has insurance, so they're not really getting hurt, and we're going to go make our point. Umbrella insurance is good. I'll tell you, I own a horse breeding and training facility in Oregon, and it's a huge barn on 40 acres, 40 stalls. We have all these expensive animals in there. We have people coming and buying stuff from us and having their mares bred to our stallions and all this stuff. And I have a $3 million umbrella policy on that. And I also have all of the corporate stuff set up around it, including the horses are separated from the barn, which is separated from the business part of the barn. It's all broken up because every one of those places is potentially a litigation target. So even if I were to lose the business, I don't want to lose the property in the barn. You know, if there was a problem in the barn, I want my horses insured and protected in another corporation because they're valuable, they're very valuable, and so on. So umbrella insurance is useful, but as it relates to contingency litigation, especially, it can often be a carrot. It can be another thing to get.
Got it. Definitely not enough armor, it sounds like. How often do you need to do minutes on a?
Okay, so it depends on how active you are. If you have an LLC and you funded it with, $250,000 and you use that to just put money into syndications, let's say, and you're not like actively doing a lot of stuff, then, maybe a quarterly meeting, maybe a twice a year, semi-annual meeting, may be enough. But if you're doing anything where you're making decisions, you're signing contracts, you actively have money coming in or out from outside investors, so you're going out, somebody's putting money in on this deal, or you're going to loan money out to a deal or anything like that. If you're actively doing anything, and certainly if you're running, if you own a complex, was it Kevin that said he just got his first, was it you that said you just closed on your first 40 or 50 unit by yourself, right? Well,
Syndication.
All right, it was syndication. So, but if you're the one running that and managing the property, all of a sudden there's more stuff that you're deciding, and you're collecting fees and you're taking an income for running the operation. Maybe you're not, but that's people that I know that put syndications together to buy multifamilies. They stay in it in some managerial way, which means they're the point of the spear, the tip of the spear for who gets blamed for anything that goes wrong. And so what you want to do is have chunks of it separated, in which case, if you're the one that's actively running it, you may need, especially at the early stages, you may need a monthly board meeting. If it's a
single member entity though, just does an ongoing log of, we approved this invoice, or how simply could I do minutes and it be non-penetrable?
Well, minutes, okay. The idea here is that the people that look at this stuff, the court or the auditor, like anybody else that does anything, if they see something they don't recognize or it's unfamiliar, then they typically will go deeper into it. Mm-hmm. What you want to do is have these things in the proper legal format. The idea is to get that adversary to look at you and go, oh, they know what they're doing. This is going to be a tougher nut to crack than somebody who's kind of doing out of their back pocket, got a bunch of little pieces of paper shoved in a drawer, and Kevin's writing, what's a proper legal format? You can go online and you could look up examples of minutes and resolutions, and you'll see there's a format. A number of companies, including Intuit, offers a do-it-yourself thing. There's basically pre-written documents you can fill in the blanks. We've done a lot of work with Intuit, and they said nobody uses it. Some people buy it, nobody uses it. You know why? Because you guys don't want to do this stuff. You don't want to do it. Entrepreneurs don't like to do paperwork unless they're bookkeepers, right? So that's why we have tens of thousands of clients, because it's cheaper and faster, and there aren't mistakes when you use somebody that actually knows how to do it. We get probably 30% of our business wholesale from law firms, because your lawyer's not going to promote, hey, pay us $350 an hour, we'll do your minutes for you. They want to do contracts, they want to do negotiations, they want to do litigation. They know you don't want to pay a high hourly fee for a one-page document. So they send the clients to us. And I mean, I have no way of selling you anything right now, but if you want, I can tell you how inexpensive it is to do this using somebody like us that's been doing it for 50 plus years, right? Or just over 50 years. And it's for the first entity. I want to know what Kevin's saying. My first resolution would be to not, is all I can see. It's for your first entity, which I would say your primary business, your primary entity, it's $1,000, $997 or something like that. And for that $1,000, we call you every month on the phone. We extract the information out of you. We create unlimited numbers of documents, send them to you in the proper format. You sign them and put them in your book. And we'll go back for 5 years, which is the typical time that a lawsuit or an audit looks back, unless it's a fraud or some kind of criminal thing. But in a civil matter, it's usually up to 5 years. So we'll go back and reconstitute, reorganize all that stuff, and ratify the decision of the previous boards, so that in that first year, you're solid. So it's $1,000 to do all of that for one company the first year. If you have two companies, the second one's $595 for the same treatment. And then month 13, the price drops down to either $49 a month or $495 for the year. So it's super inexpensive, it's unlimited, and you don't ever have to learn, what do I need this? Do I not need this? Does this count? How often? Most people that are in business want to go make money. They don't want to spend a tremendous amount of time working on late night. I had a doctor call me one time. I've known her for a long time. And she said, can I talk to you a little bit about my operating agreement for LLC? And I said, sure. And so she starts asking me all these questions. And I'm like, well, I'm not a lawyer, but why are you asking me this? She goes, I'm trying to write an operating agreement for my business. I said, you're trying to write a whole operating agreement? And she said, yeah. I said, why? She goes, I don't know. I thought I was supposed to. I said, no. Almost everybody uses a boilerplate operating agreement. Almost every entity out there uses a boilerplate. Why would you do that? And I said, plus, if you need something specific, hire a lawyer who does contracts or
a guy. You got a guy for that, right?
Yeah. I mean, pay a couple $100. I said, what do you get per hour as a doctor?
Right. Great
She's a
point.
surgeon. Anyway, you get the point.
So I know we only have a few minutes left before we get into the networking piece here. But I think we have a couple of questions about single member versus dual member. And I learned something from you in Orlando about could you kind of maybe in 5 minutes sum up single member, double member, why single member is less protection than a dual member?
Okay, LLC's limited liability company. LLC, limited liability company. Sounds really cool, right? Limited liability. Well, LLCs were designed to be an upgraded version of, and this applies to Series LLC, Felicia. LLCs were designed to be an upgrade from a general partnership. You never see general partnerships anymore, right? Because what happened there was the partners shared the liability. So if one of them had a problem and got a judgment against them, let's say it was a doctor, they got a judgment against them. And once their malpractice insurance and whatever they owned got sucked out, then the judgment got spread out to all the other partners. So that was a big disincentive to be in a general partnership. Limited liability companies showed up in the mid-70s in Wyoming and then slowly spread to all 50 states. Well, if you're a one-member LLC, now, first of all, let me say one-member LLCs are perfectly wonderful for owning a piece of real estate or an oil and gas lease or something that you may move in and out of from time to time. But as a going business, it's not really great. And even when it's a single member LLC for real estate, it probably needs 2 layers on it. So here's why. a single member LLC, there's only one individual that can have liability, and it's the one member. So there's no real limit of liability because there's only one individual or company that can bear the liability. So it doesn't really give you and then it's considered, from a tax perspective, a 2-member LLC has 4 different ways it can choose to be taxed. A single member LLC has one way. They tax it like an S corp. In other words, gains or losses flow to your Schedule C. From a legal perspective, it's considered a disregarded entity. And so they look right through it in a lawsuit because there's only, they look right at whoever the member is, right? So if you're going to be serious about being in a lot of real estate projects using LLCs, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm a business guy, but I like using a C corp, ideally in Nevada or Wyoming, where nobody knows who owns it, as the member of the LLC in whatever location, so that if there was a problem, there's no way to look right at you right away, right? The other thing is a lot of people make the mistake of saying, oh, we are a multi-member, we're a 2-member LLC, it's me and my spouse. Spouses are considered 1 member. So your household is considered 1 member. So if you and your spouse, now if it's you and your adult kid, you and your parent, you and your friend, you and your dance partner, whatever, that's okay. But if it's you and your spouse, your legally wedded spouse, not your, we've been living together like Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn forever, but if you're married to that person, that you're considered 1 member. Does that answer your question, Mandy?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going for. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Guys, there's a lot of moving parts in this, and I didn't realize how important it is to have all these different layers of, I've done the LLC, I've done all the stuff I'm supposed to do, but if you are not riding the bicycle the right way, you're going to get tripped up. So outsourcing, it's an easy way to do it, or you can just Google all the ways to take on this proper legal format. Lots of ways it's going to cap it. Just make sure you're doing it, all the actions the right way. So Aaron, go ahead.
Well, it's my pleasure. And let me just tell you, all I covered tonight was the most basic fundamental thing that everything else gets built on top of. So if you guys have bigger visions or if you're doing really cool or more diverse things, that's another reason to go and fill out that little form and let's have a conversation and see if there's anything we can do that would be useful for you and what you're building.
If they do want to connect to you directly, can you tell us one more time exactly where they should contact you?
For me or for the Limit My Risk thing?
Is it the limitmyrisk.com?
Limitmyrisk.com. I'm almost positive that's what I said.
Yeah.
They said, yeah, limitmyrisk.com. And that will be that. I think I need a Xanax. Felicia, I'll tell you something. I had a guy stop me at a big conference one time, and he was also speaking on the program. And he stopped me and said, oh, and I just finished my talk. And it was a 90-minute version of this. And he said, oh my gosh, Aaron, your talk is so much better the second time. I said, what do you mean? He goes, oh, I got the jokes. I heard the funny little comments you make this time. First time I'm texting my wife and texting my accountant going, we're so screwed. So you don't need a Xanax. All you need to do is get this part done so you can go out and do what really matters, which is do your deals, do your syndications, make money, and not worry about this stuff. If this stuff's in order, you can sleep very comfortably at night. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Aaron.
Absolutely.
If anybody would like, Aaron, you're welcome to stay. We want to be cognizant of your time also, but we will do a couple of breakout rooms here. Kevin, you